Okay, I'm just doing, good afternoon, everybody. I'm just doing a sound check here.
Found something.
And checking to make sure that people in the Zoom meeting can hear us.
Yes, we can hear you well, Sam. Thank you.
Okay,
we
great.
left the first place we went to because
And Granicus has
we're not going to be
returned.
able to finish. Let's actually hit something. That we
Okay,
can
so
finish.
Vice Chair Scott, I think we are ready when you are.
Not feel like you're depressed because it still looks horrible, just like you came.
A long day. Yeah. Sometimes I have to power some sugar. Okay, so it's 2:35, so we're going to go ahead and start our meeting up again, back from lunch. And we're going to start with our extra item, which was a discussion for suspension of the cannabis penalties for cultivation tax. Am I correct with that? Supervisor Sabatier.
If I may, I'm looking for a postponement, not a suspension,
Okay.
so that we can go ahead and have the discussion next week on a much broader scale of what taxation is doing to the industry and what is possible to do on our end to help maybe change some of those things. But today, I'm only looking at the postponement of the 25% fine and penalties that would be incurred if the tax payments would be late. That way we can go ahead and finish that conversation next week afterwards.
Okay.
Hopefully finish that conversation next week. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah,
I'm just looking for a postponement of the 25%, which would be direction to staff to go ahead and do so. And then afterwards, we will continue our discussion on the grander conversation of taxes and cannabis next week.
And Anita, is it as simple as that, as a discussion and a motion to do that, or is there something more we have to do to make sure that we?
I think that I understand what Supervisor Sabatier is saying about a postponement. It's essentially, you can call it a postponement, a deferral of incurring that penalty till the board has a chance to consider its options next week. So it's a short term. You want to make that clear that it would just be from this Tuesday to next, so that people don't have a false sense of security, because until your board considers a new item next week, you won't know what action you may decide to take, if any.
May I change that semantic a little bit to say that the postponement is until the conversation is over, just in case, because if we don't, it's just a discussion, we will not have a final approval for a resolution or anything like that next week. So I want the postponement to at least last until the conversation and the solution that we either decide or decide that there is no solution, that there actually is a conclusion to that discussion.
I would defer to
And
Anita.
Anita?
I think you can do that, but I would set, but in no event will it be later than, just because what's concluded and those types of words can be troublesome when you're trying to figure out what they mean later. So I think that you can do it as Supervisor Sabatier said, but in no event shall it be later than. And you can put it out to whatever date you want. It doesn't have to be anything near.
That's what I'd be comfortable with, coming up with a date with a longer time frame on that.
And I'd like to say maybe February 8th, that way that gives us next week for the discussion and the following week to maybe look at the action.
And then Carol?
And so on the part of staff, I want to get more clarification as to the breadth of the discussion you want to have. I think that's important so we can be ready. Today's discussion around the CPI, suspending the CPI temporarily was purposeful in its limits. That's what we brought to you today. But we also suggested in our opening remarks that you could look at other things, and it was suggested that you might want to consider an extension of the tax payments, so that, and also a waiver of the penalty, the 25% penalty, until some date in the future. That is a relatively easy discussion to have next Tuesday if you want to have it. If you're wanting something along the lines of payment programs, staff would probably need more time to flesh that out. We'd need to have discussions with the Treasurer Tax Collector about how that would work from their purview or their point of view. We would also need to work with community development. Those two offices would need to communicate on some level so that we're sure that there's a way to measure that cultivators are in compliance with their payment plans and thus eligible to grow in the next cycle, and so on and so forth. So there are some things that would need to be fleshed out that I don't think could be fleshed out in a week. Some of the other things we've heard suggested in the discussion today are things that I believe would need to go back to the ballot and be considered by the voters.
So,
If you have more in mind, we'd love to know so we can be ready for you.
I just add specific to the date of the suspension, because it is very complicated. Like I said, it's going to take 5 years to figure this out, and as said by CAO, some of the stuff we'll have to go back to vote out of the purvey. So appreciate what's come to us to this point and what is in our control to look at. So agree with the moving the deadline on the 25% penalty, but I really think it needs to be 30 or 60 days. I don't want to look at it unrealistic, and I'm sorry to say it, but I just...
So staff's recommendation, if we were making one today on the payment extension, would be, and the foregoing any penalty, would be to May 15th. So you could consider that date for the action you want to take under this extra item, and then it could dovetail with policy you may want to adopt further next week.
Supervisor Sabatier.
I'd like to have the conversation as quickly as possible, and I understand that there's some complexities to parts of the conversation, and I don't think that we should be having any conversation at this moment about any potential tax measure changes, because that's a very long conversation. So I would like to see if it's possible to do a 30-day deferral, and then coming back if we need to extend that deferral if we're not completed with that conversation in order to try to figure out what to do right here, right now.
Supervisors.
My only thought was to add on to his need, it doesn't mean it's going to be that long. That is the drop dead date. So for me, it would be fine to say the May 15th date, but it could fall off any time before that as long as we're done. So that was, I really think, because we could be back here in 3, instead of going back and forth, we got other work to do. Let's just set that drop dead date, and then if we get it done next week, it's done, you know, so we can drop it off. So that's just my thoughts on it.
Supervisor
I'm
Price.
okay with that.
Yeah, I'm okay with that, or, you know, at minimum 60 days. I'm looking at the month of February, and it's a short month, and we have few meetings, so I want to give us a little bit more buffer time if we need it.
And I think we have to make it very clear of what our actions are today. Our actions are, or you're proposing, actions are to reiterate that, so everybody's very clear of what we are doing right now today.
To postpone any potential penalties that the tax measure for cannabis cultivation and cannabis business offers, so that we can have the full discussion on any changes that need to occur prior to having the continuation of the process that we've had in place for 2, 3 years, 4 years.
Okay, and then
Could I
Carol.
further clarify, Supervisor? You said postpone the penalties, but I presume you would mean postpone the payments and any associated penalties?
If people don't pay, there's no penalties. If they pay, there's no penalties either. So I figured that if the postponement of the penalties, once we cancel the postponement, then if you haven't paid by then you would have a penalty.
Anita.
And that's a distinct point. Payment of the penalties can be deferred, certainly, but that means that they're accrued, and the penalty would just be deferred for a period of time. There's also penalties wouldn't be incurred until, which would be, there wouldn't be any. So there are two different ways to look at it. Payment is different than incurring the penalty.
And I was going with the no penalties incurred until the discussion is over.
Okay. So postpone payment, no penalty incurred.
And what date?
The May,
I'm good with the May 15th,
May 15th.
and with the, and I
No
will,
later than May 15th.
and I will say that the earlier we can finalize this, the better off the the people who want to have a season this upcoming year will be in preparation, because by May 15th, they're knee-deep into their season already, and at that point, it'd be nice for them to know what is the status so that they can make the right decision. I also want to add to the conversation of potential changes to the amount of the tax. The tax measure does allow a decrease of the tax, but does not allow an increase of the tax. That was a specific section in the tax measure that was provided. And so if we can have that part of the discussion as well.
but not today.
No, definitely not today.
Not today. I'm just trying to make it very clear for public comment of what we're talking about right now.
Can I just ask a
I'm doing my
question,
best.
Ms. Grant?
Yes, Supervisor Crandall?
Yes, and this may be a next week discussion as well, but are we enabling precedent for other tax issues to be brought forward and asked to be postponed? Or is this covered under some other way? I just want to make sure.
Well, that's a very good question, because nothing happens in a vacuum, as I'm sure you know, Supervisor. You wouldn't have asked the question. In this case, this is a local tax. Now, obviously, you couldn't do any of this with regard to a state or federal tax, because you simply don't have the authority. But with regard to local taxes, and certainly, there's always that possibility.
Just ensuring, because just in case a citizen wants to come forward about another specific tax and then use this as a justification to ask for some sort of forbearance or, something along those lines, and using this as a precedent. So I just wanted to make sure it was said.
All right, and then Supervisor Sabatier.
And I just want to add that I've asked for something similar before in the past for fire victims, fire survivors, to see if we can postpone property tax because of typically our fires unfortunately hit right when property tax bills go out. And I always have tried through at least 2 separate fires in my jurisdiction to try and postpone those bills to go out in order to not put salt on the wounds of those who have lost a home, to see that they're paying a full tax payment. So it wouldn't be my first time requesting it. And I think that it's, as long as the payment is eventually done and there's a really good emergent reason for why the request is there, I think that it's within our purview.
Also, I remember there's something that came forward last year in regards to the public, I think it was the sewer or something like that. We were going to ask for some sort of delay or something like that, but we ended up working it out because of the COVID situation. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so if there's no further from the supervisors, I'm going to open up the public comment, but I just want to urge that we don't need to rehash everything that we've rehashed this morning. If you have anything more to add to this discussion that we're having right now, I'm going to open it up to public comment. You could state your name and then you have 3 minutes.
Sorry about that, Madam Chair. I was just trying to sound relevant.
No, it's all good.
Hi there, my name is Tony Lamperti, and I want to say to all you guys, thank you very much for working so hard on all this. Honest to God, I've grown up here my whole entire life. I've been in Sonoma County working for the last 30 years of a business that I have down there. I'm coming back here for the rest of my life next year, and it's a chance for Lake County to be like it used to be. You guys, there's a chance to maybe make it a beautiful spot in the world again. Some kind of economy up here. And that's all I want to say is thank you. And we're trying. And I'm just a landlord. That's what I am. Do you know what I mean? But I want to say thank to all of you guys and EJ, and I've never really met the rest of you guys in person, but that's it. Thank you. Good job.
Any further comment in the boardroom? If we can make sure we have our masks on too, I'd appreciate that.
And next week, if COVID comes back, then we don't have to worry about that tax thing.
Thank you very much, Richard Durham. Yeah, this comes a little late for some people. Last fall, Will Dawson passed away.
That's all right.
8 days before his taxes were due. And during that whole time, his wife wasn't aware of it. So she had to pay something like $15,000 extra penalty. So maybe while we're discussing this, when it comes back, maybe there should be a provision for, like you said, the fire victims or widows, because it was really super painful for her. So I appreciate you guys considering this, and I think it's a great move. Thank you.
Hi, Board. Thanks again. Tyler, with all due respect to the item right now, just to try and prepare for next week's discussion, is there anything that, I know it's not a Q&A, but is there anything that we can do to bring something to you guys to help with the tax situation? Like, meaning, like, we'd really like to work with you guys to fix this. And I don't know if there's something that we can bring, whether it's legislation written or something, but we need to promote and protect agriculture. Bruno, I've talked with you about this. Jessica, I've talked with you about this. And if we're going to wait to vote, if we're going to wait to put all of the stuff to a vote, with all due respect to democracy and voting and all this stuff, if we're not promoting and protecting agriculture, we may lose a lot of business in Lake County. No tourism dollars in the future moving forward. Runs the gamut of issues if we don't further promote and protect the agricultural industry while promoting and protecting the health and safety and wellness of all the constituents here. So I'm just asking you, with respect to the Brown Act and all these issues, what can we do to work together? What can we do to, can we, us in this room, everybody that didn't make it back after lunch, is there something we can bring to you guys that helps? I mean, anything. I know you're working with LCCA. My regulatory attorney that I work with is supposedly working with you guys as well, but things, I know that the purview of item 7.3 was like very narrow, like we kept talking about, but it needs to be more. The tax throughout the whole state is, it's a house of cards crumbling before our eyes, and I'm just really curious, like, how we can help. Is there something that we can bring to you guys to help?
Carol maybe wants to speak on that.
I did. So there was a lot of talk earlier about continuing the discussion next week. But what you're presently considering is something that postpones until May 15th. So if you act on that, then we have a little space to prepare for that discussion properly. What staff could bring back next week would not cover the gamut of possibilities for you. It would be limited. And so if you want to have the full body discussion, I think we should clarify the expectation for when that would happen. Because in my view, the soonest would be February 8th. Sorry about that. February 8th. Sorry.
February 8th is when we're having our Cdd committee update as well.
Indeed, I think it is, yes. Let me look at February 8th here and see what else we have that day. Sorry about that.
Which was going to be
So here's what I think is coming back for February 8th, if you want to look at that as a possible date. You have the Sabaloni matter coming back, I believe. Yes.
Yeah.
We have an investment report. We have a COVID update, if the chair wishes one. And I believe we have the CDD committee report. Or is that the following week? Actually, I have that on the following week.
Oh, was it the following?
Except, yeah.
15?
And, yeah. And Supervisor Sabatier, I also misspoke. The way February falls, the meeting that the board skips is the 22nd. So the board meets the 1st, 8th, 15th, skips the 22nd, reconvenes March 1st.
And if I may respond to your question, I'm hopeful that while we provided some guidance for staff to be prepared, that the conversation as written on the agenda allows for a very generic tax conversation about cannabis being taxed, so that it doesn't limit the type of conversation we can have. But I would suggest participate, be here, lend your voice, and possibly work with all your fellow peers and have some unified voice. It doesn't mean we're going to go exactly in the direction that your voice is giving, but at least we can hear you loud and clear that this is what the industry is saying. And I think that's what LCCA has done time and time again, but that's my best that I can provide is participate, be here, be present.
I appreciate that. I think the industry wants to give you guys, the county, something. Like you said earlier, Bruno, the county has an ask and the industry has an ask. And it'd be nice to formulate a plan so we can act on the plan efficiently, and instead of having a discussion and then going back and having more discussion. I mean, I love having discussions, and I'm trying to become involved. I just really, we were talking at lunch, we need to be efficient, because, like, for example, today was a great step forward with postponing this tax, but we still have so many more issues, tax issues, and a lot of issues, but we have so much more to work on for the taxes to promote and protect agricultural industry and make sure that these cannabis businesses don't leave. I mean, everybody in this room at lunch was talking about leaving this county. I mean, every speaker today was talking about leaving this county. I mean, it's kind of serious. And I think that if there's not an efficient means of fixing the problem, again, getting the county what the county needs and getting the industry what the industry needs and working together, timelines and Brown Acts and all these things that we gotta.
And we've gone way past the 3 minutes.
We're way past the 3 minutes,
know.
and this,
Sorry,
And way past the item.
yeah, this item is about
sorry, my apologies. Thank you.
the suspension.
Okay, and Supervisor Simon.
I want to extend it on, so let's just go.
Okay, so if there's no further comments from the boardroom, I'm going to go to Zoom, and we're going to start with Nara.
Hi there, Supervisors. Just wanted to say thank you for hearing us today. Look forward to working together to craft a sustainable and equitable industry where we're all really proud of each other and the work that we're doing. So appreciate your work.
And then we'll go to Sam.
Yeah, hello.
Yes, we hear you.
Okay, great. I just wanted to really reiterate the last speaker's sentiment, and I think that, living in Sonoma County and seeing the impact that it's made here, even though we have clients across California, I see Lake County as really embracing and working with the industry to forge ahead. And in terms of, sustainable practices, so many different things that can be focused on and implemented across the board between industry and policymakers alike. Being in a state like California, we really have an opportunity to lift each other up and highlight the potentials for progress here. And I just really appreciate everyone's openness here on this board and the willingness to compromise and communicate with the industry. If I've seen anything in Sonoma County, it's been a significant lack thereof. And it's really been a detriment to the entire industry in Sonoma County. So I really just commend those efforts and emphasize, again, that it really does take cooperation and collaboration with the industry. It sounds like LCCA is doing amazing stuff to bridge that gap between the stakeholders and policymakers. So I just wanted to reiterate that. That's really it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to Patty.
Hi. Hello. I just wanted to, just come forward and thank the board for making all of these concessions and for hearing us today and making real tangible changes that we can see and feel as we press forward with this conversation. And also just to echo what Tyler was saying about the continuing conversation to use the influence that Lake County has, because we have been so open to cannabis as an industry. We have real power in making all of cannabis throughout the whole state heard by our governor and by our state. And I hope that we can take what we know about what's happening with cannabis and the operators and at the county and local levels to boost our economy with this industry to the state conversation and have that influence. And I just want to thank you guys so much.
Okay, we'll move to Julia.
I beat up so much zombies.
I was on.
There's a bomb, right?
Hi, everybody. Julia Jacobson. Thank you again for the time. I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for working with us. Thank you for hearing us. Thank you for hearing our employees. And we just really appreciate this time today and for you hopefully taking this action today. So thank you.
Okay, with that, I'm going to close public comment and bring it back to the board.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the postponement of cannabis tax payments and incurment of penalties until no later than May 15th, with a follow-up discussion coming to our board to discuss cannabis taxes in a more general sense.
Second.
Okay,
Hope that was...
I was just making sure it covered it.
I got it.
Can't see her eyes when I'm not looking.
is there anything you want to change in that, Anita?
I didn't understand the last part about in a general sense.
That it's not just specifically talking about CPI, we're going to be talking about cannabis tax. And with some of the stuff we requested that staff come back prepared to discuss.
Okay, that's better. Thank you.
Within the board's
Within the purview that is...
purview of the board, because I just want to make that clear.
And it's about local, not state. I'm extending my motion.
Sorry.
You still,
Second, as amended.
okay, I have a motion and a second. Johanna, if you could please call roll.
Okay, Supervisor Simon,
Yes.
Supervisor Sabatier,
Aye.
Supervisor Crandall,
Yes.
Supervisor Pyska,
Yes.
and Supervisor Scott.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move to 7.4, and then if we could, after that, maybe go to our pulled items from our consent, so we could get that department head on board while we do 7.4, consideration of changes to the Board of Supervisors annual calendar for 2022.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, as you remember, on January 11th, you canceled your special meeting that had been set for January 20th. That was going to be used for an in-person annual governance workshop of your board. But given the Omicron surge and the fact that the capacity of the boardroom would be challenged, if not exceeded, you decided to forego that. And you also directed staff to attempt to come up with another meeting date to substitute for that cancellation, hopefully on the other side of the surge. After doing a doodle poll, we weren't successful in coming up with a date that worked for all 5 of you. And so today I'm making an alternative recommendation to try to address the need for those meetings. And what we're talking about are special meeting dates that had previously been calendared for your annual governance workshop, and then also for department head evaluations. As you remember, the intention was that the workshop would take place, department evaluations would take place after that, and then the budget cycle would begin. Budget submittals are due in April for the July 1 budget, so it was all to be tied together. So what I'm recommending you do today as an alternative is to take 2 of the special meeting dates you had set for February 3rd and February 17th. Those were supposed to be for department head evaluations, and go ahead and cancel those. At the same time, because you wouldn't have had the governance workshop before those, to have those discussions with, related discussions with your department heads. And so then I'm recommending that you retain the special board meeting that you already have on the calendar. Previously, it was intended for department head evaluations, but my recommendation would be that you instead use it for the governance workshop on March 3rd to get started with that. And so then I'm also recommending that you retain the other special meeting date you have on the calendar for March 17th. That would be used for department head evaluations, as was the original plan. But with just one date there, you don't have enough dates to accomplish all the department head evaluations that we'd like to get done before budgets are due. And so alternatively, I'm proposing that we simply calendar those on your agenda to do on Tuesdays. And so the dates I'm proposing, and this doesn't take any action because you already have those meetings calendared, but just for your information as to how it would work, you would have evaluations on March 8th, 15th, March 22nd, which I errantly left out of the cover memo, and then on April 5th as well. So what the department head evaluation schedule would end up looking like is, for the dates that are Tuesdays, you would do 2 evaluations on those days as part of your regular agenda. So that would be March 8th and 15th, you do 2 each in addition to your regular agenda. March 17th is the special meeting on a Thursday, and my recommendation would be, with the assumption that the evaluations would take about 30 minutes each, that you attempt to do 9 of them, so you'd have a morning session, 4.5-hour session. And then back to the Tuesday schedules, March 22nd and April 5th, you do 2 more each of those dates, and that gets you through all of them. So in terms of action, what I'm recommending today really is that you just take action to cancel the special meetings you have on February 3rd and 17th, because these dates are too early to do your board governance workshop because the Omicron surge is still going on. And it's also too early to do department head evaluations because you haven't had your workshop, if that makes sense.
Sounds good. Any comments or questions from the board?
30 minutes sounds rough, but we'll try.
We
Yeah.
just did them, though.
Yeah, the thought was,
Longer than 30, but yeah, just to do it.
So would your board be willing if the 17th, if that meeting went somewhere between 4 and 6 hours? Is that going to work for everybody?
I think we should keep Bruno to the 30
March
minutes.
17th?
What did you say?
Yeah, that'll work. Have to.
I think it's good.
Yeah.
Okay, I will open it up to public. Is there any public comment on this agenda item? Seeing none in the boardroom, I will go to the Zoom room. Any comments or questions on this item? Seeing none, then I'll bring it back to the board for action.
So we're deleting the,
You're just deleting February 3rd and February 17th special meetings from your calendar.
okay. Done?
Madam Chair, I move to cancel special meetings previously calendared for February 3rd, 2022 and February 17th, 2022.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Johanna, if you could please call roll.
Okay, Supervisor Simon,
Yes.
Supervisor Sabatier,
Aye.
Supervisor Crandall,
Yes.
Supervisor Pyska,
Yes.
and Supervisor Scott.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Will they populate our calendars?
Yes, in fact, would you like your calendars populated for all meetings or just special meetings? Would you like your calendars
Yes.
populated on Tuesdays as
For
well?
the board meetings,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
That would be great.
Okay, we'll have.
stays
that.
blank.
You get a million things to accept, but.
That'll work. Okay.
Thank you.
Moving on to, we're going to go back to our consent agenda items that were pulled. We'll start with 5.3. A, waive the formal bidding process pursuant to Lake County Code Section 38.2 as agreed is tied to current 3-year Mental Health Services Act, MHSA plan. And B, consideration of the agreement between County of Lake and Resource Development Association for the Community Planning Program, CPP, process for former innovations project for fiscal year 2021 through 23 for a contract maximum of $112,350 and authorize the board chair to sign this agreement. And Todd? Director of Staff, I give you the
Thank
floor.
you, Madam Chair, members of the board. I kind of like 5.3. I think that we're probably at that point today, but anyway, so this agreement with Resource Development Associates is basically designed to help us continue our work with our Mental Health Services Act 3-year plan and subsequent updates to the plan. We are asking that the formal bidding process be waived in order to maintain some continuity of existing work that has already been performed on our Mental Health Services Act Innovation Pathways project and our community stakeholder planning program process. This is work that has already been approved by stakeholders and the Board of Supervisors in our existing Mental Health Services Act 3-year plan. And our apologies in getting this to the board so far into this fiscal year. But as the board memo states, this was due to some administrative staffing changes at Resource Development Associates that led to delayed invoice settlements from the prior fiscal year. And I'm not sure if Elise Jones is with us here, if she might want to add something to this in case I missed something. But this is why we are bringing this to your board for approval. But she might want to add something in case I forgot something.
Thank you, Director Metcalf. Good afternoon, your board. The only thing that I would like to add is that because we are in the middle of a 3-year plan, and as you're all aware, MHSA, Mental Health Services Act, rotate in 3-year plans, we've already begun the work of our annual updates. However, moving into the next iteration, our next 3-year plan of 23-24, I believe, we will be going out to bid for this and all MHSA related contracts.
Thanks, Elise.
With that, we'll go to the board for questions. Supervisor Sabatier.
And I appreciate the presentation. The reason I pulled this item is I disagree with the waiving of the bidding process. I understand that it makes things easier, but there's a reason for the bidding process, and I disagree that the waiving is available to us at this point.
And thank you for that, Supervisor Sabatier. And I guess I guess I'm just hung up on that, and I appreciate the question, but because this organization has been working with us on an already approved existing 3-year plan, we just thought that this made sense for them to continue this work until this plan is done. And as Elise Jones articulated, that then we would go out to bid in the new iteration of the next round of our 3-year Mental Health Services Act plan, if that makes any sense.
And I hear you. I think that there's always going to be the possibility of items being in progress where we need to switch over, similarly to staff being switched over, similarly to Board of Supervisors being switched over, depending on the results of elections. I've been looking for an RFP. I have not seen an RFP, and other than coming from the COC, I think the COC has done a fabulous job of doing the RFPs, and I appreciate that. But I need to see the bidding process being followed as the purchasing ordinance dictates. Other than that, I support the program and I support what needs to get done. It's part A that I can no longer, yeah.
With that, is there anything further from the board before I open up to public? Seeing none, I will open up to public comment on this item. There's nobody in the boardroom, so I'll open up to Zoom. Is there anybody in the Zoom room that has any comments or questions on this item? We are on 5.3. Seeing no hands raised, then I will bring it back to the board for action. Bring it back to the board for action.
Yeah, that siren is a little ominous in the background there. I hope that.
Okay, I'll make the motion, we'll see. Madam Chair, I move to waive the formal bidding process pursuant to the Lake County Code, Section 38.2, as is not in the public's interest due to the unique nature of goods or services, and B, consideration of agreement between...
Do we have to do them separately?
I apologize.
No, we can do them together. Sorry.
Consideration of agreement between the New Life Health Authority, DBA New Life LLC for substance use disorder, outpatient...
Wait.
Am I reading the right one?
No.
5.3.
Yes, we're on 5.3.
I'm on the wrong one, I apologize. I'm on 5, they all look the same.
It's all good. That's why we're...
All right, there we go. Madam Chair, I waive the formal bidding process pursuant to Lake County Code Section 38.2 as agreement is tied to the current 3-year Mental Health Services Act MHSA plan. And B, consideration of the agreement between the County of Lake and Resources Development Associations Community Planning CPP process and Former Innovations Project for fiscal year 2021 through 23 for a contract maximum of $112,350 and authorize the board chair to sign the agreement.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Johanna, if you could please call roll.
Okay, Supervisor Simon,
Yes.
Supervisor Sabatier,
Nay.
Supervisor Crandall,
Yes.
Supervisor Pyska,
Yes.
and Supervisor Scott.
Aye.
Thank you.
5.4, waive the formal bidding process pursuant to Lake County Code Section 38.2 as it is not in the public interest due to unique nature of goods and services, and B, consideration of an agreement between New Life Health Authority, DBA New Life LLC for substance use disorder outpatient drug-free services, intensive outpatient treatment services, and narcotic treatment program services for fiscal year 2021 through 22, not to exceed $400,000, and authorize the board chair to sign. Director Metcalf.
Thank you again, Madam Chair and members of the board. This is truly a very exciting item. If this agreement is approved by your board, we will be able to expand substance use disorder services in partnership with New Life Clinic, in particular focusing on our tribal population. And not to steal any thunder from New Life Clinic, but I'm hoping, I believe, if they're still here, that we do have a representative from New Life Clinic with us in the meeting today who might wish to speak more about this, this amazing opportunity. Jennifer, are you here? And if not, perhaps our Substance Use Disorder Services Administrator, April Gambra, might be able to speak to this, because this truly is a very exciting opportunity.
Go ahead, April. We'll go ahead and give you, she has her hand up. There you go. And you're unmuted, but we don't hear you. So let's go to Jennifer. I see her here also.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Hello, it's an honor to join you. I'm Jennifer Kent. I am the former director for the California Department of Healthcare Services and used to oversee the state's Medi-Cal program. I have had the great honor of working with the Pinoleville Pomo Nation tribe to create the New Life Clinic in Ukiah. Obviously, as you know, substance use disorder, specifically opioid addiction, has been a significant problem in many counties, especially in Lake County. And this clinic, as owned and operated by the tribe, is a really unique entity in which they are recognized by both federal and state law as what is known as a Tribal 638 clinic. They have very unique legal distinctions about how they operate, how they're recognized by both the federal government, Indian Health Services, and the State Department of Healthcare Services. And I think we are really proud to be able to offer, really much needed opioid treatment services to the residents of your county. And so, would really appreciate the board's support in approving this contract, but also happy to answer any questions about the technical aspects of the clinic itself or how it pertains to Medicaid.
Is there any questions for Jennifer? Supervisor Sabatier.
So a similar thing, I know I looked it up online, there's a laundry list of NPTs throughout the state of California, including some in our neighboring communities. I believe it's Tribal 638, am I getting that number correct? That there's also a number around us, including Lake County, Colusa, but they don't offer the same type of substance abuse program simultaneously. And that the others, while not a tribal service through the Tribal 638, does not mean that they do not take tribal members to provide those services. It just means that the reimbursement is greater, but at the same time, without doing an RFP, it's difficult for me to know where we would get the best service at the best price and for the best outcomes for our clients. And so that was the reason I was pulling this, because again, the waiving of the bidding to me does not meet the guidelines of the purchasing ordinance. And that was throughout the state of California, not Northern California, but there had to be at least, I want to say 25 to 30 NPTs, or I believe that NTPs throughout the state of California. There may have been more. Just in LA County alone, there was a whole bunch, but I believe Sonoma County had 2, Mendocino had 1, and those were the ones that at least I could tell were remote. I think there was 1 in Humboldt as well, but it's not the only service provider available to us.
And see nothing further from the board. Let's see.
Yes.
Oh, EJ, go ahead.
Yes, hello, Jennifer. Just had a question about the partnership plan, healthcare plan. I know that is this stationed in Mendocino County, and because that's what I'm reading, it's kind of in coalition with that. Is this going to be amenable to Lake County when in regards to the partnership health plan? Because I don't think Lake County is a part of that program.
Yeah, sure. It's a great question. And if I was to sit and bore you with all the details of how complicated Medicaid is, it would make your cannabis tax discussion look really easy and fun. So I will try to spare you some of those details, but Tribal 638 clinics, again, are recognized first and foremost by the federal government and by the tribal nation coming and asking for a 638 designation through Indian Health Services. And then the State Department of Healthcare Services in turn recognizes that federal designation. And so your supervisor is correct that there are a number of 638 clinics in the state, and they are all individually recognized and treated as the sovereign nations that they are. Partnership Health Plan has 8 counties in their 14 county service area in which they are administering the drug Medi-Cal program on the county's behalf. And Mendocino is one of those counties. You are not a part of that program at this time. And so the contract that you are executing is still fulfilling your county responsibilities to provide medically necessary services to your Medi-Cal beneficiaries in Lake County. And so the placement of the clinic is such that your residents are able to use the services in the county, but that is what requires a contract specifically between the clinic and your county.
Thank you for that. I've experience with folks that need treatment and have been denied because of that situation, and so I wanted to ensure that we had that discussion and just that it's stated. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And then April, can we get you to unmute? Are we able to do that?
Yes. Good morning, board members and participants. I would like to say that one of the things that I wanted to add to this is that in my almost 10 years with the department, there has been an ongoing process of trying to figure things out. And through that process, our department has received invoices from surrounding areas, some as far as over 120 miles away, where we were asked by the federal government and the state government to pay said invoices. And through that process, I have learned that beneficiaries have the right to choose independently without the contract, as this is an entitlement service. And so if they choose to go 120 miles away or over to Mendocino, because their Medi-Cal does reside in our county, the county behavioral health department is responsible for paying those invoices. Another lesson that I have learned is that our auditor's office does like to have contracts in place whenever we are moving money around. And I'm kind of naive in this area. However, I know that this contract would ensure that a lot of people are happy and that we are able to be proactive in developing how individuals access services and how services are paid for. It really puts us in an advantage to be able to work more closely with New Life in developing processes to have individuals access these services. I am very honored to be a part of this. I am very much for developing contracts and developing closer relationships through contractual agreements so that our beneficiaries and county residents can get these services if they should choose. So that is all I would like to say. Thank you.
If there's no more comments from the board, then I'm going to open this up to public. Is there any public comment in the Zoom room?
Madam Chair, I see Dr. Kirshner's on. If he had any, I know he's part of, isn't he part of the New Life or something like that?
I don't know. Dr. Kirshner, is there anything you'd wish to add to this agenda item?
I do not. I just was jumping on just to hear. I apologize, I couldn't be on for the beginning of the meeting. But no, I have nothing to add.
Okay.
Thank you.
And with that, then I'll bring it back to the board for action.
Madam Chair, I move that we waive the formal bidding process pursuant to Lake County Code Section 38.2, as it is not in the best interest due to the unique nature of goods or services. And B, consideration of agreement between New Life Health Authority, DBA, New Life LLC, for substance use disorder outpatient drug-free services, intensive outpatient treatment services, and narcotic treatment program services for fiscal year 2021-22, not to exceed $400,000, and authorize the board chair to sign.
Second.
And then hold on, Anita?
I just have one minor, it's not consideration, I realize that's what it says on the staff report, but it's approve agreement. You've already considered it.
Okay.
I amend my motion.
Second.
Great, I have a motion and a second. Johanna, if you could please call roll.
Okay, Supervisor Simon,
Yes.
Supervisor Sabatier,
Nay.
Supervisor Crandall,
Aye.
Supervisor Pyska,
Yes.
and Supervisor Scott.
Aye.
Thank you.
5.5, approve agreement between County of Lake and Adventist Health St. Helena and Vallejo for acute inpatient psychiatric hospital services and professional services associated with acute inpatient psychiatric hospitalizations for fiscal year 2021 and 2022 through 23 for maximum compensation of $300,000, and authorize the chair to sign. Director Metcalf.
Thank you, Madam Chair, excuse me, and members of the board. As Supervisor Scott articulated, this is an agreement with Adventist Health, St. Helena, and Vallejo to provide acute inpatient psychiatric services and hospitalizations. I've talked about these types of facilities before, and the importance in having existing contracts with these facilities in order for us to place our folks. And these facilities come from an approved list generated by the California Department of Healthcare Services, and these facilities are relatively close to Lake County, thankfully, which keeps us in compliance with the Olmstead Act that, yes, I'm still working on that presentation to your board, which mandates that mental health providers such as Lake County Behavioral Health Services ensure that client placement are as close to their home as possible. These facilities are in high demand with waiting lists miles long, and the need for beds in these facilities has dramatically increased over the last couple of years, while the number of available beds is decreasing. We frequently utilize these two particular facilities not only because of the services they provide, but also because of the proximity to Lake County. So therefore, I'm asking for board approval of this multi-year agreement for the reasons I hopefully clearly articulated.
Is there any comments or questions for Supervisor Pyska?
No, I'm sorry.
Supervisor Sabatier.
So my reason for pulling this is, one, there is no waiving of the bidding. And I think that is a requirement, especially for something that's $300,000. And I know that there's the potential of having to pay for where people went, but this is also going into the future, so we're definitely predicting that we will have a relationship with them, with patients that we send their way. And so I think that this needs a waiving of the bidding. I also, on the other hand, do not agree with the waiving of the bidding because I'm looking forward to that conversation about the Olmstead Act, because I've done a little bit of research since you brought that up, and I don't see exactly where that mandate lies. It talks about community type of facilities rather than like state hospitals. That's the requirement, that they get the lesser of the services, not so much an institutionalized type of facility. But I do not see anywhere where that states the mandate of close proximity to home. I think that's definitely something I agree with if we have a choice, but at the same time, I still think that the RFP process is an important one to make sure that we utilize the public funds in the best of ways possible. And again, looking forward to your delivery of the presentation of the Olmstead Act in case that there are things that I'm absolutely just not finding. But that is my reason for pulling this item.
I too am excited about the Olmstead Act discussion, only because in some instances I do understand having psychiatric help for nearby patients so they can get to their treatment and whatnot closely. However, in some instances, when it comes to mental health along with addiction, putting people close to their environment with addiction always leads to well, not always, but a majority of the time that I've dealt with it, especially on Indian country and with recovery, is recidivistic. So maybe we can, once we get to that, we can discuss that more, but I just wanted to highlight that for you. Yeah.
No, absolutely. Thank you both supervisors for that input.
Is there anything further from the board before I open up public? We're looking to the public. So any public comment or questions on 5.5? Not seeing any public comment, I'll bring it back to the board for action.
Does this have to be waived?
I guess that would be a question for Anita.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
The question would be, does this have to be waived? Formal bidding process is not on the agenda as that, but can we add that, or should it be that?
Well, for the past payments, certainly it's not required, but going forward in the future, your board does have a competitive bidding requirement, so it would have to be waived. It's not on the agenda to include that item.
So do it without that, or how do we proceed?
Well, you don't want to be in violation of the competitive bidding ordinance either, so your choices would be to put it over for one more week on the consent agenda and just have the waiver included so that you can make both findings. Your other choice would be to, and this is not one that I'm even very thrilled to say, but I suppose you could say that the need for the waiver is implicit, but you really want to hesitate before setting that precedent because you'd no longer see waivers at all. So your safer bet is to put it over to allow for the waiver as to the services that are prospective as opposed to already have occurred.
Okay, I think we should be putting this over, but not on the consent, because I believe Supervisor Sabatier would pull it anyway. So let's put maybe
Put it on non-timed items.
non-tied items, if that's okay?
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that, yes.
Yep. Okay. And we don't need to make a motion for that, we can just push it over. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Since I see the sheriff here, we will go to his items that are next. Okay, we'll go to 7.6. Consideration of a policy to waive the fingerprinting rolling fee normally charged for applicants for live screen fingerprint checks when the purpose of live scan is to satisfy the requirements to participate in youth services organizations serving the youth of Lake County. Sheriff Martin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think some of the board members have been contacted by members of our local Little League organizations. Little League, in compliance with a change in state law, is having to do full live scan background checks on any person that's involved as a volunteer or manager in any of these youth sports organizations or youth organizations at all. They've asked for a waiver of the fingerprint rolling fee. These youth sports programs, these other youth programs, civic organizations and whatnot, I think they're extremely valuable to the community. And I'm very supportive of waiving that fee. The fee is only $20. That covers the cost of our staff time for providing that service. It would be narrowly tailored to people that were getting their fingerprints in order to be approved to participate in one of these youth activities. The burden to our budget is insignificant. It's not going to cause me a whole bunch of grief, and I think the benefit to our community far outweighs anything we're going to lose off the $20. So I would submit that the board approve that waiver.
if it was a one-time, one person was going to come in and do it, I'd probably do it on my own authority, but knowing that there's probably going to be several hundred people coming in for this with all the youth sports that we have in the county, I'd like to make sure that we're completely transparent and out in the open with this.
Is there any questions or comments? Supervisor Pyska.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing this, Sheriff, and it is really important. So many times the volunteers are asked to do separate live scans for every sport or different organization that they're volunteering for. So I appreciate that and that your department is willing to carry that. Is it just for sports or is it for other youth organizations like Scouts? I don't know that, maybe Boy Scouts has that. So I just want a little more clarity on that, but I really do appreciate you bringing this.
It would be for anybody that's getting the live scan check as a result of the requirement and the change of law. I can't remember what Assembly Bill the numbering was on it, but it made it a requirement that people participating in these activities are live scan background check. Just for clarification, this is only the $20 rolling fee charged by the Sheriff's Office. There will still be fees associated with the Department of Justice for running the checks at the state level. I'm not asking to waive those. Those are still going to have to be paid by either the organization or by the individual applicant. This live scan fingerprint check also triggers a notification if the person's ever arrested to the organization for which the background check was requested. So if somebody got arrested and they're in a good, clean background, no criminal history, and they started volunteering and they got arrested 3 months later, the organization that has them volunteer would be notified of that arrest. But probably a lot longer answer than just your question. So, so yeah, it's available to anybody. If you're working for the betterment of youth, I'd like to waive that fee.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that clarification. Oh, sorry.
Supervisor Crandall?
Just Assembly Bill 506 is what it is. It's, you said it.
And Supervisor Sabatier, you're good. Okay. Supervisor Simon?
Just my only question, and I think you said it, how many folks you think this would be? A couple hundred, you think, a year? Or? Okay. That was really it. Obviously, I think it's a great idea. Number one, making sure that we have safe people around the kids, number one, but giving them an opportunity to, to waive any of those fees, just like you say, the economically disadvantaged, or as we all know, volunteering and working with the youth, there's a lot of time put in with that, and anything to help put that 20 bucks in our gas tank to get from place to place always helps out. So, yeah, I think it's a good idea. Good job, Sheriff.
Is there anything further from the board? Supervisor Sabatier?
So I spoke to the sheriff about this, and we kind of ended the conversation with it's unnecessary. But just in case you happen to have more than 200, I would suggest please come back to us. We want your department to remain whole. I think it's more worth it to reduce the $20 to ensure that our youth activities continue in our county. We have, whether it's cannabis grants or whatever other funds that we can use to make sure that you remain whole, just in case you do get a larger group of people than you anticipate.
Okay, and with that, I will open up to public comment, and looks like Helen has a comment. If you could state your name, and then you have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Helen Mitchum, and I'm on the board of South Shore Little League. And I contacted Sheriff Martin to ask about this. I did check with the 4 little leagues that we have in the county, and it looks like our numbers would be 120 maybe to 150. And it'll be this year because we have several returning volunteers year after year who would not need the follow-up scan. So it's almost like a one-time thing because we've never required fingerprinting in the past. So I do appreciate Sheriff Martin bringing this. I appreciate all of your consideration, and we have a lot of things in the 4 leagues to do before we actually get to the place where we're going to go see Sheriff Martin. But we are doing that as we speak. This law just went into effect, or we just found out about it, right? Just before the first of the year. So thank you very much. I hope we'll get this done. I can't speak for any of the other youth organizations, soccer, basketball, anything else. So just Little League is for me.
Thank you very much.
And I don't see any further public comment, so with that, I will bring it back to the board for action.
Sheriff Martin, I do have one more. Would this include the North Shore Youth program as well, or is this just specific to one? Or are you considering all?
If it's any organization that's running on a volunteer basis that has to have this requirement pursuant to the AB 506, thank you for finding that for me. Like I would support waiving the fees for those. Like Supervisor Simon said, you got people who are volunteering their time. What will happen is if you start making it costly for people that are volunteer, they're not going to volunteer and they're not going to participate. And I don't know that you can measure how much of an impact that might have, but I think we can all agree that that's not what we want to see. We want to see responsible, safe adults that are willing to donate their time and develop our youth and turn them into people of character, people that understand teamwork, people that are productive, they're not hanging around getting in trouble. I was thinking about it earlier today. I'm like, hey, we could waive this $20 now and we'll probably save a whole bunch of time 15 years down the road because maybe some of those kids won't be coming to see me to get fingerprinted for other reasons.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, Supervisor Pyska?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I move that we waive the fingerprint rolling fee normally charged for applicants for live scan fingerprint checks when the purpose of the live scan is to satisfy the requirement to participate in youth service organizations serving the youth of Lake County.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Johanna, if you could please call roll.
Okay, Supervisor Simon,
Yes.
Supervisor Sabatier,
Aye.
Supervisor Crandall,
Yes.
Supervisor Pyska,
Yes.
and Supervisor Scott.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. We'll go to your next item, 7.7, consideration of the purchase of communication equipment to be installed at various repeater sites in the amount of $283,000, and B, authorize the sheriff or his designee to issue a purchase order to Daily Wells Communications. Sheriff.
Thank you, and I do see Lieutenant Wells on here. Lieutenant Wells will join us if there's any questions on any technical stuff or operationally regarding these, but this item is brought to your board to authorize the purchase of a total of 9 VHF base station repeaters, 8 dispatch VHF base stations, and 2 UHF dispatch base stations, along with the other equipment required for their installation. There's, as you can see from the bid, there's all kinds of components that are required to put these things in, install them, and make sure they run properly. The purpose of this, these dispatch, all the base stations and the repeaters are aged anywhere from 10 to 16 years old. There's advances in technology. Some of these are reaching the end of their life, so they need to be replaced. As far as process went, this went out to a sealed bid. The department solicited bids from 5 prospective vendors, 2 of which applied or replied to it, and Daily Wells, I believe, is the lowest bidder, and no relation to Lieutenant Wells at all. The funding from this is going to come from Homeland Security Grant Program, Emergency Management Preparedness Grant, and there is a county match of around $60,000 that will need to be made, and we're going to be using that out of some of the cannabis tax revenue. It's going to go into our mid-year budget request. With that, I would like to thank Lieutenant Wells, Chief Cepeda with the Lake County Fire Protection District, Mary Beth Strong, and Stephen Carter with their help in this process. These sealed bids and putting together the information takes a lot of staff work and a lot of technical expertise and know-how that, quite frankly, I don't have. So if there's any questions about the technical stuff, Lieutenant Wells is on, and I'm happy to answer any other questions from the board.
Is there any comments or questions? Supervisor Pyska?
No, oh, sorry. Nope.
Supervisor Sabatier?
Again, just want to reiterate a question that I asked, and I don't know if the board's interested, but with the armory swap that we are slowly moving towards, I asked Sheriff Martin if this was something, because they're looking to do some fixes on the current sheriff's department with the antenna, and wondering if that can be movable, and the answer was yes. So I think this is absolutely, I mean, obviously we want the latest and greatest technology to have the communication be as efficient and smoothly done and available. It's shared with other mutual aid and other OES personnel here in the area, and so I absolutely appreciate and agree with this item.
Okay. Looking that there's no further questions or comments from the board, I will go to the public. Is there any public comments or questions on this item? We're on 7.7. Seeing no hands up, then I'll bring it back to the board for action.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the purchase of communications equipment to be installed at various repeater sites in the amount of $283,000 and authorize the sheriff or his designee to issue a purchase order to Daily Wells Communications.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Johanna, if you could please call roll.
Okay, Supervisor Simon,
Yes.
Supervisor Sabatier,
Aye.
Supervisor Crandall,
Yes.
Supervisor Pyska,
Yes.
and Supervisor Scott.
Aye. Okay, I see that our treasurer and tax collector is here, so we'll move to 7.8, consideration of resolution authorizing the chairman of the board to approve and direct the tax collector to sell at public auction via internet tax default properties, which is subject to the power to sell in accordance with the Chapter 7 of Part 6 of Division 1 of the California Revenue and Taxation Code and approving sales below specified cases. Tax collector Ringen.
Good afternoon. Currently, the tax sale is scheduled, is board approved for May 27th through June the 1st. And there are, I believe, 942 parcels listed on this sale. For this particular auction, there were, I believe, 87 properties that have been offered at a previous tax sale, and we've reduced those bids, at least one tax sale, some were multiple tax sales. So we do request authorization to move forward with this public auction for the end of May, first part of June.
Okay. Supervisor Sabatier.
So I feel the need to share with you an attachment that should probably be on this item anytime it comes to us, because we're also approving the reduction of the minimum bids, and there's nothing there to show you what that reduction looks like. And so I'm going to share my screen because I asked Ms. Ringen for this. Where's my share screen button? There it is. So this is probably going to look a little bit small.
Really small.
If I can do something to change that. Really hard to see.
I think we can see it on our home computers. It's just that screen's not good.
So you can see here, this is the deficit of how much was taken out. So originally, the amount due was $12,644. My cursor does work. And it's being offered for $4,500, so a reduction of $8,144. Some of them are larger. This one you can see is $21,000. And I need to move this. When you go lower, it does get much higher. This one is a reduction of $146,000. This is a property in Clear Lake Oaks. It looks to me as if there must have been a code enforcement abatement, a cleanup, or something to add that amount.
Or a couple of them.
Or a couple of them. Then this one's deficit of $40,000. There's another one later on for about $73,000. I believe it's in the city of Clear Lake. I just wanted you to be aware. There's one for $90,000, also in the city of Clear Lake. That adds up to a total of a deficit of $1.3 million. So I believe that the entire 942 properties that are on the tax auction have the potential, if sold, if all of them are sold at minimum bid for approximately $8 million. Before the deficit sale, it could have been $9.3 million. And I think that there has to be reductions in order to make these properties viable properties. I just wanted you to be aware, since we are approving of these reductions today, and I wanted to make sure. My question for Ms. Ringen is that this has the potential to affect whether that's special districts, whether that's our fire districts, whatever agency may have placed a lien on the properties. Is this something that is discussed with those entities and agencies so that they're aware that they can no longer recoup this amount because of the deficit sale? Just kind of curious of the process and if that has occurred.
No, it is not discussed prior to setting the minimum bids with the districts. And going forward, that would not be something we would take into consideration. Our main goal is to offer these properties at a minimum bid. Now, granted, these at least twice, most of them at minimum once, most twice or several times these properties have been offered prior at auction. It's our responsibility to lower the bid low enough to stimulate the bidding, so these properties will eventually be productive properties within Lake County.
Okay, and one of the reasons that I ask, and thank you for the answer, the reason I ask is I know that there are some agencies that are curious as to previous deficit sales that have occurred. They seem concerned. I don't know if it's because they don't understand that, same as what you said, that these properties would not be sold if it wasn't for the deficit sale, and we've already tried to go through the tax auction. I would suggest a more open line of communication to make sure that there's not those concerns and that they're well aware, and a simple email could definitely help out with that as well. My other question to you is, what does that do, and I know it's probably a loaded question in a sense, but what does it do to the teeter to have the negative $1.3 million in deficit sale?
Unless, I see our assistant Liz Martinez is also with us. I don't know if she'd like to speak to that, but that question is probably better directed to the auditor controller, Kathy Taterlin.
That's correct. That's a calculation that's done by the auditor controller's office.
And I believe that the teeter is pretty important in ensuring that it can pay off the 1% to our cities and our county to remain whole when taxes are not paid. I'm just, it would be really nice to have that conversation prior to ensure that there is not a huge hit or damage to the teeter prior to doing this. I don't have enough information to say no to this today because I really want to see these tax auctions happening. But I believe that there could be some better communication and better arrangements to make sure that questions are answered prior to this coming to us. And making sure also that this does come to us rather than not being provided as an attachment.
Yes, it was our intent to get this attachment with the board agenda, but unfortunately, due to staffing, we did not have this complete in time to make it for that.
So my question then is, every one that's up for auction then has already gone to auction previous, so everyone that we're putting up has been to auction previous, because I know a lot of times when we put these houses up for auction or these properties up for auction, half the people come back and pay their taxes. So that's probably not going to happen then with this section of houses or properties, because they've already been up for auction at least once. Am I correct with that?
On the ones that we've reduced the minimum bids, that's correct. These majority of people are just definitely not interested in paying the taxes on these properties.
So there are then properties that are up for auction that haven't been.
942 out of that, 87 are being deficit.
Oh, okay, it's only 87. Okay. Sorry.
It could potentially be more than 87. They chose to reduce it more for 87, but I believe the large majority of the 942 are definitely for the first time from what I've reviewed and looked at on our GIS tax default map.
But for some reason, if those property owners came back and they wanted to pay their taxes to get their item off, they would not get that reduced amount, correct? They would have to pay the full taxes that are due?
That's correct.
Okay. Any further questions from the board?
Yeah.
Supervisor Crandall, or Chairman Crandall.
Just more of a statement. I sent in a list, I want to say back in November, and I correlated it with the list that was in this item on the memo. And I appreciate that a majority of those were on there, and I know too that some of them, they get worked out. Some people pay theirs off and whatnot, so I noticed the differences in even on the map. So I appreciate you ladies getting to the the default properties that I sent in. I know Supervisor Sabatier worked on the Clear Lake Oaks area because of the roadmap task force, because I know that's one of the initiatives over in that area, and I'm glad to see these coming forward. Thank you.
Okay, if there's nothing further from the board, then I will open up to public comment. Is there any public comment on this item? And I see one. Is it Justine? If you could give us your name, and then you have 3 minutes. And you will need to unmute.
Okay, unmute.
There you go.
Okay. Let's see. So yeah, my name is Justin Baldwin, and I'm one of the owners of one of the tax default properties. Been on the market for at least 12 years. I think it's gone to auction maybe 3 or 4 times. And it was because the county had assessed the properties at 2 to 3 times their value, maybe 10 times the value in the beginning. And I stopped paying taxes based on a dispute with the county, which was never resolved. Nobody ever seemed to understand that sometimes properties that just have very low value, and if they have very low value, then you should tax them appropriately. So I'm sure that there's other in that original 87 that are similar to mine, where the county just refused to budge, assessed them unfairly, and the property owner never paid the tax. So I'm sure of the 900 and whatever left, there's got to be a large percentage of people in the same position. And I'm sure the county of Lake is probably desperate for money, and if they can get what they can, sell them and get what you can. But it's still, in general, it's an unfair situation when assessors assess the property unfairly to begin with. The owner refuses, and then they languish in the auctions for a decade or so. That just seems stupid. I hope you guys can kind of get with the program and figure it out. And good luck. Have a good day.
And seeing no further public comment, then I'll bring it back to the board. Supervisor Sabatier.
I just wanted to respond to the public comment. The assessor is in charge of the appraisals of properties, and there is an appeal process within a certain amount of time in case that you disagree with the appraisal, which then has a certain amount of time to come to the Board of Supervisors. We've done a couple of those and reviewed some of those appeals as well. So there's definitely a process, and once that process is over, then at that point, yes, that person or yourself does owe those taxes.
Okay, so I'm looking for action.
Let me find it.
Offer the resolution.
There you go.
The resolution's been offered. Johanna, if you could please call roll.
Okay, Supervisor Simon?
Yes.
Supervisor Sabatier?
Aye.
Supervisor Crandall?
Aye.
Supervisor Pyska?
Yes.
And Supervisor Scott?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to item 7.5, consideration of the following advisory board appointments: Lake County Vector Control, Lake County City Area-Wide Planning Council, and Lake County Child Care Planning.
Sorry about that. Madam Chair, if I could make a clarifying comment about these.
Clarifying comment here. So of the applications that you have here, the application of Dennis Fordham is for the Library Board of Trustees. His application to continue. He has been an appointee. However, we neglected to list the Library Board of Trustees on the list of appointments, advisory board appointments. So my recommendation would be to forego that one, and we can put it on your calendar for the next week. But the rest of them do line up with the 3 advisory boards listed there.
Okay. Any comments or questions from the board? Yes, Supervisor Sabatier.
I just want to thank everybody that resubmitted an application to, again, be on the Child Care Planning Council. Just appreciate their time and energy towards that.
Wonderful. I will now open up to public comment. Is there any public comment from the Zoom room on this item? Seeing no hands, then I'll bring it back to the board for action. And we need to take these up separately, please.
Right.
Correctly? Correct, yeah.
If nobody minds, I'll go ahead and get started. I will say I approve of Ronald Nagy being appointed to Lake County Vector Control.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Johanna, if you could please call roll.
Okay. Supervisor Simon,
Yes.
Supervisor Sabatier,
Aye.
Supervisor Crandall,
Yes.
Supervisor Pyska,
Yes.
and Supervisor Scott.
Aye.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I move to approve Timothy Warnament to the Lake County City Area-Wide Planning Council.
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Johanna, if you could please call roll.
Okay, Supervisor Simon,
Yes.
Supervisor Sabatier,
It's been a long time since that position's been open.
Very long
Yes.
time.
Supervisor Crandall,
Yes.
Supervisor Pyska,
Yes.
and Supervisor Scott.
Aye.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I move to approve Soledad Aguayo, Jamie Castaldo, Megan Handy, Angel Copa, Sulema Perez Cruz to the Lake County Child Care Planning Council.
Second?
I have a motion and a second from Supervisor Pyska. Johanna, if you could please call roll.
Okay, Supervisor Simon,
Yes.
Supervisor Sabatier,
Aye.
Supervisor Crandall,
Aye.
Supervisor Pyska,
Yes.
and Supervisor Scott.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, I think our calendars are the last thing that needs to happen, other than closed session, if I'm correct. We'll go ahead and go to Supervisor Sabatier.
I have, looks like I have a Lake County Fire Protection District meeting going on tomorrow. Hopefully that's the case. Tomorrow I'll be joining the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion training. We had to cancel the Lake County Solid Waste Task Force as well. There is RCRC legislation call-in going on later on that evening, and as well as a CSAC call. The Economic Development Task Force will be meeting on Friday, and then we'll be doing a follow-up on the syringe exchange program to work towards getting all the data and information needed to come back to the board for discussion. And Housing Authority meeting on Monday, meeting with Lake County, what is this? I don't even know what that means. I have another meeting and then a meeting with our CAO.
You're talking about the 1 o'clock meeting?
I can't make what's SCWA. I forgot.
It's a water-related meeting.
Okay, gotcha.
Can't tell you the acronym, but.
Yep. And then coming back to Tuesday for a meeting here.
Okay, Supervisor Pyska?
Yeah, we just have a couple things to report on. See, last week at the Disaster Council, the sheriff made an announcement that on February 7th, there's going to be a full 3-minute test of the sirens in South County, and that's not Hidden Valley. But, so that's Middletown, Cobb area, and then also the Rivieras, the Kelseyville Riviera Homeowners Association installed 3 sirens, so this is going to be their inaugural test. And the reason a 3-minute test is so important is because you get multiple rounds of the siren. So many times when we have tests, people, it goes fast and people miss it. And so this is 3 full minutes. We're going to really be able to appreciate the sound. And people are excited about this. This is a big deal, and I really want to thank the sheriff and Lieutenant Wells for doing this. It might seem like a small thing, but it's really, really not. It's significant. So just really grateful that that's coming together. Supervisor Simon and I had a meeting yesterday with Senator Maguire and Assemblyman Aguilar Curry pleading our case about tree mortality. I know there was a request to bring that to the board agenda, and we will at some point when we have something to present, because right now we're just really we've done the research, we're trying to develop the ask and figure out the strategy, and we will bring it, but we're focused on it, a lot of work's going into it. We had our CMAT meeting before the RRA yesterday, and we're really working, the CMAT committee is kind of focused on developing the Lake County Fire Safe Council. And then Risk Reduction Authority, we were talking about tree mortality. Okay, now my calendar. So tomorrow morning, I have a meeting with Sheriff Martin at 9, and then Cdd Committee. I have a meeting at 1 o'clock with Donna Davis from AT&T, and we're really going to be talking about the cell service that keeps going down in the Cobb area and see how we can remedy that. And on Thursday, the diversity, equity, and inclusion training. I have a question about that because we have the governing board meeting, the AAA governing board meeting that starts at 1:30. So will we be able to?
The diversity, equity, and inclusion training is supposed to wrap up by 1, I believe.
Oh, okay, because it's until 2. So I just wanted to check on that. And then, okay, that other Cal OES meeting I won't be able to attend because those other 2 are happening.
It may be a squeaker.
Yeah. Friday, I'm going to have to miss our weekly planning meeting with the home hardening because my Congressman Thompson is going to be dropping into my district, so I want to be able to meet him. And I'm meeting with a constituent, hopefully, and code enforcement in Kelseyville in the afternoon. Saturday, I'm going to be camping at Six Sigma Ranch because my daughter's on the mountain bike team, and there's a mountain bike clinic there and trail building event, so I'll be there Saturday night to Sunday morning. And then Monday, I'm going to have my weekly meeting with Carol, and then I have a meeting at 1 o'clock with PG&E to talk about their responsibility in a specific area where there's high tree mortality and figuring out, which trees they're going to need to be responsible for around their infrastructure. That's it.
Okay, Supervisor Simon?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on the Risk Reduction Authority meeting that me and Jessica had. Obviously, a lot of topics come up there. I just want to thank all the departments that are going, and also encourage, I'm going to reach out to community development that we have someone from code enforcement. The conversation always comes up about a vegetation abatement, and I really want to get on track now that we have code enforcement, or our new CDD director, and making sure that they attend those meetings. But great attendance. I think there's great collaboration going on. The new CMAT implementation team, which Jessica talked about, we're implementing those things, and we're going to get some stuff done in 2022 to keep that momentum moving forward. So I also want to talk about the Best Fits Grants meeting. You want to make sure that anybody who wants to be there. I talked with Tammy yesterday about LAFCO, John Benoit going to talk about different issues too, especially with all the grants that are there. Maybe there's some opportunities that we can help point our water purveyors in the right direction. So these are all things that we're looking at, and I just want to thank everybody for that. And Supervisor Pyska for just being so energetic coming on the board this last year and everything. So, and there's a lot of stuff going on. And she's done some great work with CAL FIRE, but I also want to make sure that we're not trying to fix the entire forest. These beetles are going to do what they're going to do in our forests, and we need to make sure that we have a plan going forward, but making sure we have safe ingress and egress out during fires and all those things, so we can really focus on that. So, yeah, that'll be a great conversation to have down the road. Also sat in the conversation with Senator McGuire. Tomorrow I have the meeting with Brian Martin also at 9 a.m., CDD Committee meeting, and then later that afternoon I have the RDA Successor Agencies Oversight Board meeting, the first one of this year. And then we have the Diversity and Equity and Inclusion training. Yeah, the same question. That goes from 9 to 1 or 8 to 1? Because on mine it says 9 to 2.
It's, the HR director advises that it should be over with at 1.
Starting at 9?
Yes.
Okay, just want to confirm. And then there is a grant, if I can jump on there for just to listen a little bit. It's Prepare Kick California. See if I can catch some of that. If not, I'll definitely watch. Hopefully they'll record it. On Friday morning, I will attend the home hardening meeting, and then I have a meeting down in South County with a new potential facility that may be coming into the old candle factory there, which I've never seen. So going to look at that project. And then later on that afternoon, we have the Economic Development Task Force meeting at 1 o'clock on my calendar is what I got. And then back here on Monday for our meeting. I mean Tuesday for the meeting, sorry.
Chair Crandall.
Okay, just a quick update. We didn't meet last week, so the RCRC meeting that I attended, it was a Zoom meeting. The new chair of RCRC asked me to be on the regulatory committee as the vice chair. And so I guess I still haven't got to ask if Bruno's supposed to step in for me if I'm not able to attend, but however, it gives us more of a voice and it gets us more involved a little more on that end. Then I attended also the Ad Hoc Advisory Committee in which we had a report from some folks from the USDA and the foresters. It was Liz Berger and Tony Scardina, and I posted them some questions and concerns about the tree mortality and hooked them up with hooked Jessica up with their contacts so that she can move forward on that. And if there's anything I can do to help facilitate when it comes to, but of course I want to make sure Brown Act and all of that. So just any type of guidance is good on that, Ms. Grant. So I don't want to. I only just sent her the information, and that was that. I didn't want to get too far into it or anything like that. So that was that. Let's see. Tomorrow's agenda review. I'm not sure what I schedule tomorrow, but that might be a good thing considering my personal situation. Diversity, equity, and inclusion training. From what I understand, I need to be there to make some statements, and I'd like to be there. I know that we also have the AAA meeting at 1:30. I'm not sure if I'll be able to. I'm pretty sure it shouldn't conflict, so I'll attend the AAA meeting if you can't, Supervisor Pyska. And then Friday I have a meeting with the supervisor, part of the RCRC. He's from Alpine County. We're going to talk about some policies that they would like to see revised in regards to.
It was one of the only COCs that performed their pit count, and many are moving forward this year. Some are still counseling, but this count is definitely needed to help those that are experiencing homelessness in our community to bring funding in. We have over 70 volunteers and 30 agencies here in Lake County that will be out doing the count on Thursday. So that's where I will be all day Thursday. On Friday, I have a Hope Rising Board meeting, starts at noon, and then a Smart Start Bright Future vision update at 3 o'clock, and then ZEPA committee follow-up at 4. And then on Monday, I have meetings with constituents and then getting ready for Tuesday's meeting. So with that, we will now go into closed session. 8.1, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D1, Center of Biology Diversity et al. Versus County of Lake. And 8.2, conference with legal counsel, decision whether to initiate legal pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D4, one potential case. And with that, we will go into closed session.
So Sam will need